Most people think they'll have time. That's the first mistake. They picture a grid collapse the way Hollywood sells it. Slow, dramatic, a news anchor looking nervous, a presidential address, maybe a countdown. They imagine themselves calmly loading a cart, grabbing what they need, driving home before it gets bad. What they don't picture is standing in a Walmart at hour 2, watching a grown man in a polo shirt fight a teenage kid over the last case of water while the fluorescent lights flicker like they're about to give up on all of you. That's not a movie scene. That's a Tuesday. And the terrifying part isn't the chaos, it's how fast it arrives. 6 hours, that's all you get. And most of that window disappears before the average person even accepts that something is actually wrong. The first hour is denial. People check their phones, call a neighbor, assume it's a local transformer, something that gets fixed by dinner. The second hour is when the people who've been through something before start moving, quietly, efficiently, without announcing what they're doing. By hour 3, the parking lot looks like a demolition derby, and the shelves inside look like a philosophy, just the idea of where things used to be. By hour 5, there's security at the door and a line around the building, and nothing worth standing in that line for. Hour 6, the manager locks up, and everyone who spent the first few hours convincing themselves it wasn't that serious is standing outside holding nothing, realizing the window they thought was wide open closed while they were still deciding whether to walk through it. This pattern isn't speculation. It played out in New Orleans after Katrina, in Puerto Rico after Maria, across Texas during the 2021 grid failure, in the Northeast during the 2003 blackout. Different zip codes, same 6-hour collapse of the retail supply chain every single time. So here's what this is about. Not the 12 items people grab, but the 12 items that disappear. And more importantly, what the people who've actually lived through collapse go for instead. Because those two lists look almost nothing alike. And the gap between them is the difference between making it through the first week and spending it miserable, dehydrated, and making terrible decisions under pressure that compounds every hour. Let's start with the one that clears out inside the first 90 minutes of any serious emergency anywhere in the developed world. Number 1, and this one always goes first without exception, is bottled water. Gone. Not depleted, gone. Pallets of it. Evaporated, like they were never there. People panic buy water because water is life, and the math is visible. A gallon jug is a physical, holdable, countable unit of survival, and the brain loves that. You can see it, you can stack it, you can point at it and feel like you did something. The problem is that bottled water is one of the least efficient forms of hydration stockpiling that exists. It's heavy. It runs out, and the moment that shelf is clear, you're completely done. What the guys who've actually been through this prioritize isn't the water, it's the means of making water. Gravity-fed filters, hollow fiber membrane filters, chemical purification tablets, and unscented liquid bleach, which at 8 drops per gallon renders most contaminated tap or standing water safe to drink. A filter rated for 1,000 gallons weighs less than a 6-pack of water bottles, fits in a backpack, and costs about $25. Bleach is dirt cheap, ignored entirely by the panicking crowd, and still sitting on the cleaning supplies shelf 4 hours after the water aisle has been stripped to bare metal. One gives you a week, the other gives you as long as you need it. Field-smart people grab the thing that makes water, not the water itself. Number 2, right behind water, and just as predictable, is bread. White bread specifically, the carbohydrate comfort food that somehow makes people feel like they've prepared for something. They're not wrong that calories matter in a crisis. They're wrong about the form. Bread goes moldy in 3 to 5 days without refrigeration, has minimal nutritional density per calorie, and takes up disproportionate space relative to what it actually gives you. When experienced preppers see the bread aisle emptying, they're not competing for it. They're heading for pasta and rice, which holds out significantly longer simply because it lacks the emotional obviousness of a survival food. Nobody pictures a bag of dry rice and thinks, that's what keeps me alive. But mathematically, it absolutely is. A 5-pound bag of white rice contains roughly 8,000 calories, keeps for 25 to 30 years when sealed properly, and costs about $4. Nobody is fighting over that at hour 2. They're too busy grabbing Wonder Bread that'll be green by Friday. Number 3, and this one has a nuance most people miss entirely, is canned goods. The cans that disappear first are the comfortable ones. Soup, ravioli, baked beans, canned chili. People grab what they recognize, what they've eaten on a lazy weeknight. What stays on the shelf longer, sometimes surviving all the way into hour 5, are the nutritionally superior options that feel less familiar. Here's one that gets left behind almost every single time: canned sardines and mackerel. Protein-dense, high in calories relative to their size, rich in omega-3s, zero preparation required. You can eat them cold, straight from the can, with nothing else. If you can't stand fish right now, treat them as calorie-dense insurance rather than a meal you're looking forward to. Because day 4 of no power arrives and options narrow, the taste objection disappears fast. Canned oysters, canned chicken, and canned salmon sit equally untouched. The unfamiliar stays on the shelf while the comfortable disappears. Knowing that the high-value cans survive the first rush is a legitimate tactical advantage that costs you nothing except awareness. Number 4 is batteries, and they vanish fast, but 90% of the people grabbing them have nothing particularly useful to power. AA batteries for flashlights that'll run 8 hours and then leave them in the dark anyway. What disaster relief workers have learned through actual field time is that disposable batteries are a finite answer to a problem that may run days or weeks longer than anyone is planning. They move past the battery display entirely and head for the camping aisle, specifically for hand-crank weather radios. In the first 72 hours of a serious collapse, information is concretely life-saving. You need to know if the failure is regional or national, because those two scenarios demand completely different responses. You need to know if water treatment facilities have backup power, whether there's a curfew, a shelter, a chemical facility that lost containment nearby. A hand-crank NOA radio answers all of that with a single battery, a single bar of cell service, or a functioning internet connection. A flashlight tells you where the floor is. A weather radio tells you what's happening in the world outside your door. Most people only understand that gap after they're already sitting in the dark without one. Number 5 is portable generators, stripped in hours because nothing reassures a suburban family than a machine that makes the world look temporarily normal. And they're not wrong for the short term. But here's the problem anyone who's been through a prolonged outage has watched play out: fuel. A generator running continuously drains 5 to 10 gallons of gasoline every 24 hours. Gas stations without power can't pump. Most people buying generators in hour 3 have 48 hours of fuel and no plan after that. The generator becomes a loud, expensive paper payweight on day 3. Field-smart people who want electrical capability have shifted towards small portable solar systems. A 100-watt panel with a lithium battery bank runs $200 to $300, charges phones, radios, and medical devices indefinitely, produces no noise, needs no fuel, and works just as well on day 1 as day 20. As long as the sun cooperates, which it reliably does. Number 6 is candles, and they clear out fast because real darkness, not 2-hour power outage darkness, but full, sustained darkness with no street lights and no phone screen and no ambient glow from anything, is something most people have genuinely never experienced as adults. The psychological weight of it lands heavier than expected. The instinct to grab fire is correct. The problem is what you're actually doing in that darkness for days at a stretch. You're not sitting peacefully at a dinner table. You're changing a dressing. Try any of that with a candle in one hand and hot wax running toward your fingers. The LED headlamp section, usually hanging quietly in the camping aisle, priced between $12 and $25, looking thoroughly unexciting, almost always survives the first wave of panic buying. Headlamps are hands-free, far more battery efficient than handheld flashlights, water resistant, and the quality one on low settings runs 100 hours or more on a single set of batteries. 2 weeks of functional vision after dark? That's not a tool, that's a companion. Number 7 is first aid kits, and they go by hour 3, which is a problem because most of what's inside is theatrical, designed for minor injuries in a world where a hospital is still 30 minutes away. People grab the red box because it looks like safety, and the cross symbol does something reassuring to the nervous system that has nothing to do with the box's actual contents. Experienced preppers build from components instead, and the components survive the rush because they don't form the visual shape of an emergency. Picture this. It's day 2, someone in your group has a deep cut from broken glass that isn't closing on its own, and you're standing there holding a box of decorative band-aids. That's not hypothetical, that's exactly how it plays out for people who grab the pre-assembled kit without thinking. What actually handles that situation is medical-grade sterile gauze with real absorption capacity, a hemostatic pressure dressing designed to control serious bleeding without needing a second pair of hands, nitrile gloves so you can work without contaminating anything, oral rehydration salts because blood loss dehydrates faster than people realize, and significantly more over-the-counter pain medication that feels polite to buy at once, because unmanaged pain in a no-access-to-care scenario degrades sleep, decision-making, and functional ability in ways that become dangerous fast. The components cost roughly the same as the pre-assembled kit, and they're scattered across 3 different aisles, which is exactly why they're still there when you need them. Number 8, and this flows directly out of the medical supplies conversation, is the over-the-counter medication nobody grabs until they desperately need it. 2 specifically, both sitting quietly on shelves that almost never get cleared: antihistamines and antidiarrheal medication. Allergic reactions without emergency care access escalate quickly in ways that feel disproportionate to how manageable they usually seem. What's a minor inconvenience on a normal day becomes a serious situation when the nearest functioning hospital is an unknown distance away, and getting there requires fuel you may not have. Antidiarrheal medication matters because gastrointestinal illness is nearly inevitable when water quality degrades, refrigeration fails, and food handling becomes improvised under stress, all of which happen in the first week of any serious collapse. That illness isn't just uncomfortable, it causes dehydration that accelerates fast and compounds every other problem you're already managing. A box of loperamide weighs almost nothing, costs under $5, and is one of the highest utility per dollar items you can carry into any emergency. Number 9 is infant formula, and if this doesn't apply to your situation, skip ahead. This one's genuinely not for you. If it does, here's the reality stated plainly. The 2022 formula shortage hit American households during a non-emergency, with stores still open and supply chains still partially functioning, and the result was months of visible national panic. Extrapolate that to a grid-down scenario with indefinite resupply timelines and the logistics infrastructure that stopped moving, and the math becomes genuinely frightening. This is the one item on this entire list with no clever alternative, no field substitute, no camping aisle workaround. You build the stockpile before the event, or you scramble during it under the worst possible conditions. Number 10, and this flows directly out of the medical supplies conversation, is the over-the-counter lighters and matches, cleared fast because fire is one of the most primitive forms of security embedded in the human nervous system. What that's left behind, sitting on the camping shelf looking like a novelty item at $8 to $12, is a ferrocerium striker. A ferro rod produces sparks at approximately 3,000 degrees Celsius and works in wet conditions, freezing cold, at altitude, after years in storage, with no degradation whatsoever. No moving parts, no fluid to evaporate, no flint wheel to seize up. A standard Bic lighter under regular use lasts perhaps a week before the fuel runs out, and fails immediately and completely when it gets wet or cold, exactly the 2 conditions most likely in a real survival scenario. One ferro rod produces thousands of strikes across years of use. Anyone with serious outdoor time will tell you this within 5 minutes of any gear conversation. The rod is waiting on that shelf for whoever knows to look. Number 11 is paper maps. Physical, folded, ideally waterproofed maps of your local region and the routes out if you had to leave quickly. They'll be sitting undisturbed in the automotive section because it's genuinely inconceivable to most people that their phone could fail them in a meaningful way. GPS runs on satellites, yes, but accessing those satellites requires a charged phone requires electricity, and electricity requires the grid that just went down. The average smartphone lasts 12 to 18 hours under moderate use. After that, you have an expensive glass rectangle useful for nothing. People who've operated in unreliable infrastructure environments don't wait to find out how long the outage will last before securing navigation. They secure it first. The moment you desperately need a map is exactly the moment you can no longer drive somewhere to buy one. Number 12, and this one nobody talks about, the one people realize too late every single time, is cash. Physical currency, small denomination bills specifically, because large bills become nearly useless when nobody can make change and trust between strangers is already thin. In the first hours of a grid collapse, card readers die. ATMs go dark or emptied within hours. Every swipe, tap, and digital transfer runs on the same grid that just stopped. Suddenly, the person with $200 in small bills in a Ziploc bag in their car can buy fuel from a neighbor, food from a small shop running on a handwritten ledger, or a skill from someone they urgently need. Cash was the only language still working, and the people who had it had options that everyone else simply didn't. That envelope in your glove compartment cost you nothing when life is normal. When it isn't, it might matter more than everything else you grabbed. Here's what all 12 of them tell you when you look at the full pattern together. What the people who've lived through this reach for is fundamentally different. They reach for capability, not comfort. The filter instead of the bottle, the component instead of the kit, the ferro rod instead of the lighter, the weather radio instead of the battery pack, the map instead of the phone, the cash instead of the card. In every case, they're choosing the thing that keeps working when everything around it has stopped.